Welcome to a new episode Beyond Perception. I'm Simon, and it is my absolute joy to welcome Brenda McMorrow today.
Thank you.
And to, just introduce you briefly to those who don't know you yet, very few out there. Brenda, you are a Canadian devotional chant artist, and you're very much known for your unique and warmly embracing style of mantra music, in which you blend different elements such as acoustic folk and ancient Indian chants with a sweetly introspective sensibility. And to quote a few references, the yoga journal describes you as having a knack for expressing the deepest realizations in the sparsest lyrics. And I believe your teacher, Ramana, has said you have a special gift. And your music has been touching people's heart worldwide. And as you write on your website, your mission is to help bring more peace, understanding, and well-being to the world by supporting individuals and realizing their true nature. Welcome, Brenda. I'm so glad that we are meeting today.
Oh, thank you, Simon. It's great to be here with you.
Yeah, it is my true joy and honor. And maybe just to provide a little bit of context to our listeners, how this conversation came into being, because I had this, and I believe it's maybe 1.5 years ago, I had this encounter with the teachings of Ramana Maharshi and Anandamayi, which suddenly crossed my path and was quite impactful, and nothing really seemed the same anymore. And the understanding of myself was powerfully, but also wonderfully shaken. That it was definitely a bit of confusing for a time. And by accident, I found your wonderful Anandamayi Kirtan, which really touched me and helped me to really reconnect with that, what is beyond words. And I had no clue who you are, but in that moment I just felt very much compelled to reach out to you, and because your music resonated so much, and I really was curious to hear about your journey and your self-realizations, which I imagine possibly led you to create such wonderful and heart-opening music. And here we are. So
that's great.
That's a bit of a context, and maybe that's a good starting point, because what I just shared, your mission is to support others in realizing the true nature. And if I may ask you this, was there a special moment which led you to realize who you truly are?
Yes. Well, let's see. It feels in a way, and you probably know what I mean when I say it's interesting to talk about there being a particular moment when one might realize who they really are, because it's sort of beyond time, for sure. But there was definitely an experience that occurred back in 2004. Actually, it was like New Year's Eve, 2003, going into 2004. And I was on a self-inquiry retreat where it was called the Enlightenment Intensive. And I really didn't know what I had gotten myself into going on this retreat. I just knew that I really wanted some relief from, some tough circumstances that I was just going through a marriage breakup. I just wanted to feel happy again. So I somehow got led to this retreat, and I didn't have any expectations around discovering really deeper truths about myself. I really just wanted to be happy and or to feel happier. And so I was very surprised when this technique that we were using in the retreat, where we sat across from another person. This switched every 40 minutes, but we inquired. We said the question, or they gave the instruction, "Tell me who you are," and which is, the teachings of Ramana Maharshi, are based in in that self-inquiry, turning the mind sort of back towards its source by asking this essentially unanswerable question. It's what we're really finding out is what we're not, so that what we are can stand revealed, right? But the mind, doesn't really comprehend that very well. But you can use the mind by asking this question, who am I? For it to sort of suddenly get a different orientation. And so, the process of asking this question, it was about 8 to 10 hours a day that we were doing this. On the second day, something occurred where there was it's very, it's not possible to put into words, but something dropped away, or shall I say, everything dropped away, and I had, I guess, the truth of the source of my being became obvious through this perceptual mechanism. I saw it, or was it, or realized it had always been like that, again, I can't put into words what happened, but when that shifted, when that became apparent to me, I feel like that my whole life changed. Everything around this expression of beingness that is called Brenda changed. Now, I didn't. It's not that I suddenly knew who I was and then didn't ever have any problems or anything anymore. I definitely did. I had all kinds of things to still work out in my life, and still do. There's always this remembering, forgetting, but essentially the remembering has remained. But there's definitely been a journey of relaxing into the truth of who I am, which again, it's hard to put into words. And I think everything that I do is informed by that more consciously than it was prior to that moment, if that makes sense. And my music, within about 6 months of having this kind of revelation, or for lack of a better term, I discovered Kirtan. I went to a chant workshop, and it became very clear in within, I think, 2 chants. This Yogi John, his name was playing his guitar and chanting to Shiva, who I didn't even know who Shiva was. I didn't know what mantra singing was. I just happened to go to this workshop. But within 2 chants, something in me just recognized that the power of mantra is such that it could allow the workings of my mind to slow down so much that I was right back in the pure awareness state because of the power of the mantra. So for me personally, I didn't even give it any thought. It was just like a clear message. Oh, this is the kind of music that I will do now. Boom, like a lightning bolt, actually. And I didn't really know what it was, but I knew that everything was going to change in terms of my music. So that happened in 2004. And I knew I was to go on a journey of discovering what this mantra Kirtan thing was. And within 4 years, I journeyed back to the East, and back to the East. It's interesting choice of words, where maybe some other past lives have occurred. I was living in South Korea, and I was able to spend some time in India studying and learning, and then I was there for about 3 years, and then I came back to North America and put out my first Kirtan album and started touring, doing that music. And so it's an interesting process. I think anyone who has had the taste or the the direct knowing that had occurred for me before might agree that everything fundamentally changes in terms of our perception. And so I felt like it was one of the greatest gifts of all time for me. And yeah. I could go on, but
No, it's wonderful. I mean, at times one believes or thinks there's more important things out there, but if one is very honest and comes to rest, no, this is what you're sharing about is what everything really is about. And so I'm very grateful for you sharing a bit of your experience. And so the time point, or you now being a devotional chant artist, was very much a result of this revelatory moment.
yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
And maybe just out of curiosity, there are these different forms of yoga. There's a more physical aspect, or there's a more contemplative, or there's maybe what you mentioned before, self-inquiry. There's also bhakti yoga, and it's called the yoga of devotion. And from what I'm hearing, this seems to be your choice, or your main choice. I don't know. I'm just assuming that. And what maybe you can describe a bit what bhakti is about, and what you see coming into your life as a result of singing, chanting, and bringing this into the world.
Yeah, well, you're right. Bhakti yoga, the yoga of love, the yoga of devotion, is definitely the path that I follow. However, I also feel that Gyan yoga, the yoga of wisdom, the self-inquiry, the Advaita Vedanta, this is also a path that I follow. So it's like they both kind of go together for me. And it's like they really all the yogas lead to the same thing. They're all ways of us deepening into the truth, and also of discovering the things that we took ourselves to be, and seeing the unreality of those, and then being able to then live from the source of who we are. And so bhakti, some people think it's quite different. The two yogas, the Gyan yoga, or Jnana yoga, or Yan yoga, depending on who's pronouncing it. But I definitely do see them being very, very compatible. So self-inquiry is big for me. Ramana is always with me. I always have, when I play music, I always have a photo of him looking at me, or facing out to the audience, just or both. And I think that
if I may say this, I have a book of him next to me when I usually do podcasts.
Oh, amazing! So he's totally with us. Yeah. It's interesting. I'm kind of diverging from your question, Bhakti Yoga, but something's just occurred to me that Ramana Maharshi, I actually visited Tiruvannamalai before I even knew who he was. I had done the self-inquiry retreat. I had this moment of direct experience of my source, and so it was all informed. That process had been informed by his teachings, some other teachings as well, but Ramana was a big part of it. And I went to India, but I didn't realize, because they had never mentioned his name. that I saw this picture of him and felt so drawn to him, and then found out a couple years later about his teachings, much more about his teachings, and felt such a deep resonance and gratitude for him, and so back to the bhakti. It's an interesting, it's almost like a paradox. We see a lot of paradoxes in our dual world, in our dual experience. And in bhakti, we're handing ourselves over in devotion and surrender to a deity or to the divine. And so there appears to be a real sort of separation, like it's a me and then it or them. And so it appears that way. So we're singing, we're in devotion, and there appears to be the separation. However, it's this perception of separation is just like a tool in order to then realize, in fact, that we're one, and there's not two. So it leads to gyan, to the non-dual awareness, essentially, in the end. So they go very nicely hand in hand.
And I know that you are also facilitating retreats and workshops, and you're also providing guidance to others on their journey. Would you say that it is very much individual choice which path to follow, or is chanting or singing or bhakti something everybody, if they open their minds, could benefit or enjoy or find joy in?
Yeah, well, I think what is an individual choice? I mean, I know that we definitely appear to make choices for sure, but I think we our hearts really lead us where what is most resonant for us and supportive for us. And so some people resonate greatly with chanting and being very expressive. It might actually work well with their personality, there. And that's, I know for me, I have that kind of a heart, whereas others might not so much. The much stiller meditation and inquiry might be more for them, and some might like both, like I do, and I think you do as well, possibly. And so, and when I've facilitated some of the self-inquiry retreats myself and done workshops, and I really feel like because I'm on a path of continual discovery as well. So I don't put myself in a place ever of saying, oh yeah, I know the truth. And so, like, here, let me help you. Let me tell you, like, not at all, because I'm constantly coming up with, or coming up against perceptions of myself as being separate. Even though I do know the deeper truth, there's still this karmic play that goes on. So I don't see myself as someone who really knows the ultimate truth. But what I do love to be able to do is to help people to uncover the truth for themselves, because I'm still doing that. And I think I love other teachers and facilitators that also can help me to just, I don't know, it's like a reminder. We're here to remind each other. So and you know how there's the saying that we teach what we need to learn as well. So whenever I do self-inquiry workshops or anything around tapping more into the source, I'm totally providing myself that opportunity too. So I learn from the people that I work with, and it's a beautiful process. So I'm really grateful for it.
And one question, or what I'm very curious about, because I've seen that in a few occasions, and I would assume it's quite common that many singers, when they start doing music or musicians in general, they're very innocent about it. They just do it for the joy of music. They love to do it. And then maybe they become a little bit famous or they get a reputation and maybe they start adapting in a way, or they get incentivized to produce music in a way that it fits a certain expectation, or maybe the mainstream, or what music labels maybe expect. And I think, and I'm sure many people agree, your music feels very innocent and pure. And what I love to ask you, because like from my own experience, I can feel very vulnerable to be in front of an audience, or presenting like your craft like in a way that it is true and not adapted in a way to fit expectations. And was this a process for you? Has this been challenging at time to be that open or vulnerable, or show who you are, or was that something you always were kind of gifted with, and it was just very obvious to do?
Well, that's interesting because there was actually a marked shift in my in the way that I wrote and the way that I presented, and the comfort level that I had with presenting the music the way it wanted to come through me. And that did happen after this this experience of tapping in to the deeper truth of who I am. I started to write music that naturally wanted to come through. Whereas prior to that, when I was a folk rock pop kind of singer-songwriter from the early 90s is when I started playing music professionally. I always would think at that point around what would be a hit, what would people most like to hear. You know, I think it was naturally emerging from me as well, but it was much more mental. And so after when I started writing melodies and songs for mantras and kirtan songs, I was just doing it for the love of it. And then it was interesting because that's then when my music started reaching a bigger audience, was when I didn't actually, it's not that I didn't care, I did care, but I wasn't focused on what people thought, you know? So I was more just focused on the devotion of it, and cross and say that I never think about that. I hope people like my music. Of course I do.
Yeah.
You know, that as a musician, we rely on actually the fact that people want to hear it. You know, that helps us to continue doing that as our career. But the core of it was purer. I think you used the word pure, and I mean, I never really think of myself as pure, that's for sure. But you know, but I guess in a way the music comes through in that way. And the blocks to it seem to get moved aside. And yeah, and I don't put pressure on myself anymore with the music. I know when a song is ready to come, it'll come, but there can be many months that go by where I'm not writing anything. And that's a different process than some musicians. They'll write every day just to keep in practice. Maybe one day I'll adopt that, but essentially I just kind of wait till the song it knocks on the door, calls to me, and I'm like, oh, okay, better get the guitar, you know, and then it'll come.
Okay, yeah, that was another question, but you kind of asked it already. Your creative process, yeah, how that looks like, if
Right.
um,
Yeah. Well, the
mhm.
creative process, yeah, mine is a little bit uh there's times when it's quite high. Like right now, it's happening a lot more. And then, like I said, sometimes some months will go by and not a lot will happen. I might do some prose writing, but I feel like there's an incubation time that can happen. where the song seems to be writing itself somehow, and I'm not aware of it, because when the songs come through, not always, but often they seem to be kind of already written. Like the song that you heard, Anandamayi, definitely just seemed to be like, okay, here, this, we better record this and write down. Well, the words were written by Sri Aurobindo, but the melody came through kind of just intact. The song was just ready right there. So I'm like, oh, okay, so somehow that was forming when I didn't even know it. And then in a maybe in a half an hour, it came through. So I just try to be available, for when it wants to come.
Is
Yeah.
is that something what you're naturally gifted with to be in a state of, I don't know, of openness and because if I look at my tendency, my mind wants to know how it is and it wants to work things out, and I have to still put very much a conscious effort into uh, to not follow all the suggestions of my mind. Yeah, and
Yeah, yeah. No, I still do.
mm,
My mind definitely still wants to know things. But I've kind of learned over the years that this, like with regards to songs, that they know when they want to come. They have that. So even though I do still have thoughts of like, oh boy, I haven't written in a while, or oh gosh, like am I never going to write a song again? Like I actually can think that, but I don't get too
mm,
caught up in it
mm.
anymore. I used to worry about those things a lot more, but time has shown me how it really works. And just being open is definitely much more of a pleasant experience for me than obsessing about things. So, you know, it's I'm not perfect at it, that's for sure. But typically now it's a lot easier. Yeah.
And one of the ways of sharing your songs is also you're inviting the audience to sing with you. No, it's called the Kirtan, and we have participated in one of your online workshops and sang with you at least one Kirtan. Could you also maybe to our audience share a bit of context, like what is the practice of Kirtan for? Why is it used? What is the effect um,
Yeah.
on people or?
Sure. Yeah. Well, kirtan is originally, of course, an Indian. I mean, it's a Sanskrit word, and it's an Indian practice. It's a call and response experience where ancient mantras, are used in a melodic way, in a song form, where a line is sung to the crowd by a leader, a musical leader or two. Sometimes in India, you'll have two or three people singing the main line. Especially if they don't have a sound system available, then it can be louder because then three people are singing that line, and then the crowd sings back. So it's back and forth, back and forth. So the crowd is learning the melody, they're learning the mantra over time with repetition. And there's something so powerful in a very healing way for the brain, for the mind, in that the repetition facilitates a quietening of the mind. And it's almost like kind of a trance-like experience. You know how many cultures have either dance experiences or singing experiences that
Mm,
produce a trance. And I don't mean it like a trance where somebody's right out of it. It's just like a trance in that um, they're they're put into a deeper state of awareness through the activity. And kirtan will do that. And there's something very special about kirtan too, is that typically, not always, but typically it starts very, very slow. and then it increases in speed, and it can reach quite a fever pitch. It's very fast. There's the heart is going, the respiration is increasing. There's a quicker breaths, there's an excitement happening, and then it goes back down again. So this arc actually produces a deeply healing effect in the body, because the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system, they're both activated during the experience. And that can really produce an amazingly relaxing state for the mind and the body. And so that's why often when people are at the end of a kirtan and we're sitting in silence, people report that they just feel such deep peace. So there's an actual physiological reason for that. It's physiological, spiritual, and yeah, it's it's better than any drugs you can get. And there's no hangover. Yeah. The next day is just like so you can get just so high on your own chemicals in your brain, on the connection, like everything is so joyful. And but kirtan, there's different approaches, because it's becoming more and more popular in the West. You will hear kirtan bands that are anything from jazz to really heavy rock to folk to bluegrass to reggae to blues, there's just, and everything in between. And it's interesting because in India, and I've asked people, because I had been going almost once a year for the last 5 years up until 3 years ago, so I'm looking forward to going back again soon. But I've asked Indian people, like, what do you think of these Western adaptations to kirtan? And almost, I would say, well, actually everyone I've ever spoken to is saying that they love that we're doing it. And they, sometimes people say, and it's great that you guys are working on your pronunciation, so it's very positive reinforcement. It's like, keep going, keep working on that. But they love this. So yeah, note to all of us. Yeah, right. Let's keep refining that. It's some words are easier than others for people to get quickly. But they love the devotion. It's one teacher in South India said to me, these mantras belong to all of humanity. And so I always feel like I want to deeply honor the roots of it, the Indian roots of it. And I also really recognize too that these resonate with every human being. These vibrations are sacred. They are deeply healing. I keep using this word healing because it really, really is. And yeah, they belong to us all, and it's really it's a very powerful gift we've been given, in my opinion.
Wonderfully, and you're just saying that these mantras they represent, or they are healing frequencies. Is it through that singing or through that practice of kirtan to kind of a tuning fork to have that frequency vibrate in oneself again, if that might have been lost? Or
Yeah, well, it's interesting that you say that, because I often think that there seems to be a recognition that happens, almost like maybe we lost, and suddenly we hear it and it's like, oh, I'm familiar with this. I've had a lot of people say to me that they felt at first, when they came to their first kirtan, they were like kind of struggling with the words. Their mind was wanting to get it right away and really learn it. But then once they really relaxed into it, they were like, it seems familiar, and it's a whole other language from a whole other culture. And somehow they were familiar with it. So yeah, I think there's a resonance, or like the tuning fork, like something occurs within us that we come into vibrational alignment by uttering and hearing these phrases, these words, these syllables. Yeah.
And you before you also described bhakti as singing towards a perceived external divine entity, but then maybe also through that practice realizing the illusion of that separation, and how important, if or how to describe my question exactly. So, from your experience with organizing and singing in so many different occasions, how important is the intention or or in other words, the consciousness of the one facilitating that whole experience? Is it in a way it doesn't matter because like it's anyway an expression towards something larger beyond the personal I, or is the personal intention of the one facilitating and holding the space important? I don't know if my question is exactly clear, but
I know what you mean. Yeah, no,
trying to describe that.
Yeah, let me just sort of share what kind of came up as you were speaking. Is I think there is a palpable difference when we hear music or are led in a kirtan by someone who has a deep intention for conveying and facilitating a deeper awareness, and who really honors someone who really honors the power of the mantra. So if they have that in their mind, then the others will benefit as well, because they can resonate more, they can recognize more of the deeper meaning that's coming through the person who's leading. And at the same time, the power of the mantras themselves is very strong. So even let's say, for example, someone didn't have a good intention, or they weren't really into what they were doing, but they were sharing a mantra. I think the mantra itself carries such power, but it's even better when the person leading it has a deep affinity for what's going on. Absolutely. It's kind of like anything. We feel people's love and their excitement and joy around something, and it helps us, right, to tap into that kind of energy as well. So yeah, it's kind of both.
So there's this element of transmission of the own realization or own contemplation, or of the one hosting or inviting to a kirtan.
Yeah, like when I go to a kirtan, and the person leading, I can feel their devotion and their surrender. Like when they're just completely in it. My gosh, that just it goes quite a long way to helping me and others just to completely let go as well. Like just fall into that ocean of love and bliss. It's a beautiful thing. And so, and if somebody's more in performing mode, and I mean, sometimes, kirtans can be, it's kind of a performance, a concert and devotional experience. It can be both, but if someone's just kind of not in that surrender state, it's not quite as enjoyable for me personally. I love really feeling that devotion from the person leading. Yeah.
And yeah, at times there's this perception of the seemingly contrast between the divine reality on the one hand, and on the other hand, maybe this rather plain three-dimensional existence with all the different structures of society or power dynamics we find ourselves in. And from all your vast experience with different teachers and also teaching yourself, what would you say is does leading a spiritual life mean to you, and maybe also in terms of our human affairs, and and how to deal with injustice, and how would you describe your perspective on that?
Yeah. Well, my perspective is that everything is sacred. everything that I do, everything that we do, everything that appears. You know, I was talking earlier about, finding out what we are not in order
Mm,
to, just be in direct contact with what we are. The things that we are not are also on the relative plane. They're deeply sacred. They're perfection in themselves. And so my life doesn't have to look a certain way. It doesn't, for anyone who knows me, like, they know I love to go out and dance to electronic music and stay out late and just love that kind of thing. I don't do it all the time, but that's something I do. I don't sometimes people, when I act really silly or something, people have said to me, "Oh, we thought you would be, much more like just sort of a quiet, deep meditator because of your music." So I kind of like it. It's kind of fun to be able to go from just being like in a really, really deep, quiet, quote unquote, spiritual, musical place, and then just be silly and, like drink some coffee and, like just be a person, be a little profane sometimes, who knows if it wants to come up that way.
mm,
And that I and we don't have to be just one thing. We get to follow our own nature. So our own nature, which is the expression in this life, can be many things, and all of it is perfect. So more and more now, a spiritual life to me just means life. I don't need it to look a certain way. There are certain practices that would be called spiritual that help me to kind of get to my center, but everything I do is an opportunity, right? To be present, deeply present in what is happening, because that which I am never changes. And so if I can tap into that, and then all the experiences get to somehow be perceived through that awareness, that's a spiritual life. And it doesn't have to look a certain way, you know,
mm,
by
mm.
any defined standards, you know. Yeah.
Do you have a daily singing or chanting practice?
Yeah, well, yeah, typically when I meditate, I do meditate in the morning typically. Some mornings I don't, but mostly I do. And it can range from, 20 minutes to half an hour. And I'll chant before I meditate. I find that, like, just japa, I have a wrist mala that I use, and often it will be the Gayatri mantra, the Om Bhur Bhuvaswaha Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayat. So I'll do, say, 27 rounds of that, and then I go into my meditation. And I do mantra throughout the day too. I've been going to the gym and lifting weights, which is
While,
awesome.
while singing mantras, yeah.
Well, so how when you lift, right? Like
Yeah,
I
yeah,
do
yeah, yeah, yeah,
machines,
yeah.
and you wait. So you lift and then you wait a minute in
Mhm, mhm,
between,
mhm,
right? To
mhm,
rest
mhm.
before you do your next set. I do 7 Gayatri mantra repetitions, and and I just sort of do it silently to myself. But it's quite a lovely thing. So I'm getting a lot of, because I've been going, quite a bit, trying to really get stronger, um, and yeah, the Gayatri is with me all the time at the gym. And because I could just daydream about something, or I could focus my attention on the mantra. And yeah, so for me, that really works. I love it.
And I know that you are always mm, open to share one of your songs or to
Yeah.
use the opportunity to sing. that be a good moment maybe to share one of
Sure.
your songs if you feel
Absolutely.
like doing so? Yeah.
I do. I always, I do always feel like playing music. And I just happen to have a guitar right here.
It's such a coincidence. Yeah.
What a coincidence. I wonder, do you have a preference? Would you like me to play Anandamayi, the song that you first
Yes, that would be
heard?
absolutely magical. Yeah. If you
Okay.
feel compelled to do so,
Yeah,
that will be magnificent. Yeah.
sure. And what I'll do is I'm going to put I guess what is it called? Original sound. Turn that on. So but you'll need to mute because then it starts to echo if
Okay,
but
sure. Yeah.
okay. So this is I'll just say a few words about this song. Um, I was in India in 2005 for the first time, and I was in a place called Oroville, and there was a Kirtan singer there named Joy. She's an Indian woman, and she was singing a more Vedic rendition of Sri Aurobindo's words, Om Anandamayi Chaitanyamayi Satyamayi Parameshwara. And I, in my version, I say Parameshwari, and this is O Supreme Goddess, is a form of O Supreme Goddess. But we're singing to the mother full of bliss, that's Anandamayi. The consciousness-filled mother is Chaitanyamayi, and the truth-filled mother is Satyamayi. So I heard Joy singing this, and I had her CD back when, we had CDs. And I loved it. And then at one point, this melody came through me and became Anandamayi as I know it. And I'll sing it for you now. Oh, Anandamayi Chaitanyamayi Satyamayi Parameshwari. Oh, Anandamayi Chaitanyamayi Satyamayi Parameshwari. Anandamayi Chaitanyamayi Satyamayi Parameshwari. Oh, Anandamayi Chaitanyamayi Satyamayi Parameshwari. Here's a prayer. May I open into truth, and may I be in service to the One. May I see the places in me that are unconscious or wounded, and may I face them truthfully and with courage. May I not take things personally, and may I be an allowance of others having their own experience. May I have love and joy and affection in my life, and may I share this with others. And may I have health. And may I follow my own nature with ease and an open heart. And may awakening to the truth of who I am be something that is not only possible for me, but something that I come to know is who I have been all along. Oh, Anandamayi, Chaitanyamayi, Satyamayi, Parameshwari,
I was just realizing how powerful mantra singing is, and also the little experience I had with also this song, but also which I forget a little bit because usually I'm very mind heavy, but I just remembered a few moments where the world looked really dark and it looked without any hope and without any way out. And I was at the end of overthinking and I couldn't figure it out. And then just singing and letting go and completely surrendering and like basically admitting I have no clue and like I'm just a little tiny thing in here. And the power in that is so incredible, relieving also. Yeah. And when I listened to you, I just brought that experience back and that closeness to what actually is, and that it's not far away or somewhere out there, and I have to work my way through to over there.
Right.
Yeah, but it's there. Yeah.
Well, that's beautiful. Yeah, it is an amazing reminder that that peace is never gone. It's always there, and we just forget or it gets covered over. And yeah, mantras are a technology that just help us to come back to the realization that it's never far away. Like you said, it is who we are. It is what we are. Yeah. It's good stuff.
There seems to be not much left to say. Yeah, after
Yeah, exactly.
everything was said. Yeah, Brenda, thank you so much for taking your time and sharing from your experience, sharing this wonderful song with us, and your presence and your heart with us. Truly appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, Simon, and thank you for all that you're doing to help share more love and beauty in the world. I really appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this conversation. It was very much inspiring. Thank you so much. And also to everybody, dear listeners, my true joy to you tuning in and sharing this wonderful experience with us. And lots of love to you and all the best. Take care. And I look forward to the next time. Thank you, Brenda. Yeah. All the best
Thank
to you
you.
as well. And look forward to the next encounters, the next songs, and all the best to you as well.
Thank you, Simon. Bye, everybody. Thank you.